Welcome back to Mediaweek now for a check on the media sector's performance on the share market this week. As always, we're joined by Evan Lucas from IG in Melbourne. Evan, Nine Entertainment CEO David Gyngell was off to the US this week, an investor roadshow over there ahead of a much mooted IPO before the end of the year.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting sort of time in terms of the IPO market, and it is nice to see something as large as Nine Entertainment looking at listing. The current valuations on EBITDA multiples is 9 times earnings, and that means that you're kind of roughly getting about $3 billion. So David Gyngell's certainly over in the US trying to drum up support for the whole idea. He's certainly going through the main sort of avenues in New York, Chicago, and also over into LA. But I think what he's probably going to be over there sort of trying to generate interest for is where Nine currently sits, and that's becoming basically a pure play in the TV division, as we've seen across the whole board in the media space, with News Corp as a prime example. They are all splitting themselves up into paper, print, and also into TV digital. So that's one thing he'll be pushing, the fact they've picked up Adelaide and also Perth Wind networks, and that'll be where he sort of moves that award. I think the whole idea will be that it'll probably be 2 tranches. The expectations is for about a $500 to $1 billion listing at the end of this year, November, December. It's still not completely sure. And then another listing probably around about the same time next year to get up to $3 billion on the listing. All of it's designed to basically pay off what they just paid for Adelaide and Perth. So roughly around about $500 million. It'll bring their earnings, the debt ratio down around about 2.5 times, and that's roughly what we see coming out of somewhere like Seven West Media. So good thing to do there. It'll also mean that Oaktree and Apollo can sell down their stake as well, as they do look like they want to cash out of the market. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes, and when the listing does come about, to see how sort of actively built up it is by institutions and also retail clients.
And look, Evan, News Corp selling some local papers in the US. Was there much of a market reaction?
Fairly muted reaction, and it's not unsurprising. The frequency that News Corp currently is turning over its US papers is really quite high. They sold off another 33 this week. They sold off, which is what I find quite interesting, they sold off David Jones' local media group to an affiliate over there called Infortis Investment Group. Basically, the line coming out of the company is that it's inconsistent with their strategic direction. They've got an emerging global portfolio in other areas that they want to concentrate on, and it's not strategically consistent with their portfolio structure, which is very interesting, considering a lot of people were suggesting they may even have a crack at the FT over in the UK with the money that was coming on their balance sheet. They have roughly around about $1.6 billion to spend at the moment, so that's an interesting thing to be moving away from the business papers. It'll mean also that they are looking at other areas as well, and that's particularly the property group. We know how well REA is going. We also know that they do have very, very good lines over in the US as well in that digital online property space. So that's probably where they're going to concentrate more and more on, and that suggests that they're definitely building a war chest to do that.
All right, Evan, appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Thanks, James.
Let's return to our co-host, James Manning from Mediaweek, who's joining us from Hobart this week, where he's been attending the Southern Cross Austereo Engage live event on the digital economy. Non-stop for you these days, James. Very, very busy man. Now, for this Austereo Engage live, what have been the highlights?
Yeah, well, the highlights, I guess, having it down in Hobart for a start. Everybody loves Hobart. Out at the Mona Gallery, you know, a stunning place, a stunning backdrop to have a conference. And they sort of got in and I think gave some digital insights into. They brought down some media buyers from Sydney and Melbourne, brought down some major advertisers. We heard from Harold Mitchell. He was speaking a lot about the NBN, what that could do. He kept it sort of local, saying there's some real opportunities for Tasmania there, which gets the benefit of the full rollout, of course, before most other people. Penny Wynn from Woolworths, she spoke about how Woolworths is using big data to, you know, track its customers and sort of really target what they want. Things like only 7% of all Woolies customers, she revealed, are loyal to Woolies. I mean, 93% also shop elsewhere, so they can use the data they collect of their customers to try and lift that percentage. We also heard from Clive Dickens, who's head of digital for Southern Cross Austereo, and he talked about the challenges that marketers face with the always connected consumer. You know, whether they're on their mobile phone, they're on tablets, they're on the web, as well as, you know, reacting, engaging with the company by traditional media. And he said, but look, it's really the best of times, because it does offer even more opportunities to reach those consumers.
And last week we saw Newspaper of the Year awards. Who were the winners?
Yeah, The Age was the big winner there. Newspaper of the Year again. I think it's about the 3rd time in the last 7 years, so they've got a pretty good track record. The advertiser.com.au did very well, won the digital website offering. That's the second time they've picked that up. In the regionals, Newcastle Herald did pretty well, won Newspaper of the Year award, and they also picked up an award for Best App of the Year.
And look, just taking a look at radio, MCM is to produce a weekend breakfast show for Southern Cross Austereo's Today network stations. How common are FM weekend breakfast shows, and who's likely to host this one?
Yeah, look, no, they're not very common at all. I think they see it as an opportunity to get some revenue out where they usually do sort of best-ofs of programs that have aired already during the week. Sophie Monk and Dave Thornton are up to host this. They've both been doing sort of other time slots for the network in afternoons and had some pretty good response. So yeah, that starts a little bit later this month.
And James, look, just sticking in radio, former #1 Perth FM breakfast team of Fred Boddicker and Lisa Shaw moving to Drive from next year with the station's Drive show getting the breakfast shift. So a little bit of a swapsy there. There seems to be a pretty fierce battle over in Perth to have that #1 spot.
Yeah, look, it's a hard market to get a read on at the moment. Of course, the #1 station there at the moment in FM is Triple M, which is actually Triple J, of course, which is broadcast out of Sydney. So it's sort of a network breakfast offering, but it's and overall and in breakfast, it's doing very well for them. But yeah, the commercial stations are all battling it out there. Mix was the sort of market leader for 10, 20 years. It's sort of hardly been toppled in all that time, so they really want to give a bit more impetus and switch those two shows around and hopefully get a bit of a pickup.
And Peter Maynard's going back to Adelaide.
Yeah, he was running Austereo, I think, as it was back then. He moved away from the market for a while. He went into football. He was working for the Melbourne Football Club, chief of their commercial operations. Now he's heading back there. He's jumped into the DMG camp, going to be sort of running the Nova and 5AA stations in the market for them.
All right, thanks very much, James. Come back to you in just a moment. In the meantime, we're going to head to another break coming up on Media Week. Foxtel launches 2 new Asian-based channels for Australian viewers.